Encounter is brought to you by the Broome County Council of Churches, where we connect compassion with needs as we inspire growth with dignity. You'll find us in special places throughout the community. For those who remain hungry, we provide meals. For those who are challenged, we build wheelchair ramps. We comfort those who are ill, minister to those who are confined, and we remain an advocate for change and understanding on behalf of every element of our community. Connect and inspire. Encounter the Broome County Council of Churches.
Friends, welcome to the Encounter program sponsored by the Broome County Council of Churches. I'm Mark Kimpland, your host today. I'm also the pastor at the Endwell United Methodist Church. Throughout the summer, we have spent some time introducing to you and hearing from some of the new pastors in Broome County. We've been fortunate enough to have discussions with the Reverend Ben O'Connor, the pastor at the High Street United Methodist Church. Also, we have met Reverend Jennifer Pyatt from the Nimmonsburg United Methodist Church and Reverend David Pyatt from the Hawleyton and Conklin Forks United Methodist Church. So this series continues, and today we are very fortunate, and I am honored to have with us the Reverend David Curry, who is from the Endwell Church of Christ at 3600 Country Club Road in Endwell. David, welcome to the Encounter program.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Welcome to Broome County.
Yes.
I am glad you are here. What I'd like to do is, because you are from rather far away, coming into the Endwell area and such things, and you have a very interesting story. So why don't we start back there as to what brings you here, a little bit about yourself, your family, kind of paint a picture of David Curry for us, if you would.
All right. Our launching congregation is in Memphis, Tennessee, but I grew up in a very small town in Tennessee, so things are a little different than upstate New York here. I grew up in the church, but to be honest with you, it was a very legalistic style church, very repressive, very, I call them the finger pointing people, you know, to where they didn't really extend that grace. It was all about following the rules, you know, and so even though I had a good faith from a child, it was not really grounded in a solid scriptural base, is what I call. And it wasn't very grace-oriented. You know, so my past is a little, troubled but good, because, I mean, I was brought up to know the Lord. I was brought up to research the scriptures myself, and growing up in a very small town, everybody knew everybody, sure. So that kind of kept you out of trouble. But as soon as I turned 18 and graduated high school, I was gone with a capital G. I joined the United States Navy and served in the Navy for a while. And to be honest, spiritual matters didn't really appeal to me. I mean, because I saw my parents' religion and I saw what they called following Christ, and I didn't really want anything to do with it. Sure. I mean, because the example was very repressive, and it was very, you could be mean as a snake as long as you were in church 3 times a week. You were okay. You were on the good checklist. Yes. So that, to me, was a big struggle when I became an adult. Okay. And I think a lot of young people struggle with finding their own faith, so to speak, these days. And until you go through that trial and really start walking your own path with the Lord, then you're just kind of riding on your parents' coattails of faith. And so that's one of the things that we try to focus on when I'm teaching, is that you have to make that faith your own, especially with our young people. Yes. But growing up in that small town and leaving, I got to travel and see the world, going from a town of about 3,000 to Orlando, Florida was a big change. That was, mind-blown kind of change, that there could be that many shopping malls in one place, Yes. So that, and also when you're in that small of a community, you don't realize the depth and breadth of the culture around you, the culture out there. The first time you walk into a community that is a Spanish-speaking community, and you're lost, except for your friend who speaks Spanish, then that's an eye-opening experience. And so I had a lot of eye-opening experiences when I was in the Navy, and I'm very grateful for that time. But somewhere during that time, I landed in Memphis, Tennessee. Okay. That was another big town, and I've always told myself I do not want to go back to a small town. That's it just wasn't for me. I didn't. that agricultural life. I love it, but I would rather have the city life. To me. You know, that's just a personal thing.
Yes.
But anyway, I landed in Memphis, Tennessee, and I found a congregation called Highland there that was really a blessing to me, because they kind of guided me toward faith. And I tell people, I'd never heard a sermon on grace until I landed at Highland in Memphis, Tennessee in the mid-'90s. But somewhere during that time in Memphis, I owned a martial arts school. I taught martial arts for a number of years, and that's where I met my wife. She was a student, and at first, she was just a student, and after she became an instructor with us, and we started dating. We've been married for 19 years.
Wonderful. Congratulations.
We have 2 kids. One of them is 14 in the teenage years, so you can see my hair is leaving me. But the other one is 10. They're both really good kids. They really are. I couldn't ask for better kids. And so our journey as a family started with Highland. That's where my wife and I started attending before the kids were born, or right around that time. And that church, that congregation, really taught me about compassion, really taught me about love, really taught me about stretching my faith, really getting into the Word, and really reaching out in service and love to those around me. And I think that's where my faith really started blooming. Like that flower that just kind of holds on and then just blossoms. To be honest with you, I really do feel that I was called to be a minister when I was about 14 or 15 years old. And I ran from it. I ran and I ran and I ran. I didn't want to have anything to do with my parents' religion, as I said. And so that, I think, sparked that little thing in the back of my mind that said, go, run. This is not for you. I just want to be a regular Christian. So I really had to deal with that. To really submit, because one of the things that is hard for us is to surrender everything to the Lord. And I think I was holding on a little bit of that. Even at Highland, I was still holding on to that, run from it, don't do it kind of thing. But I finally, the more I started being involved with the church work there at Highland, the more that work that the Lord had started had come to fruition. It started blooming, it started pushing me. And at the time, I was working for AT&T. I was fixing phone lines, working outside, climbing telephone poles. I was doing so much ministry that my regular job was getting in the way. I wanted to do more, and I wanted to do more, and I was having to say no to things that I really wanted to do for the Lord. But I couldn't, because I was working 40 to 50 hours a week during that. So I made the decision in my mid-30s to go back to school, to get a degree in Bible, to go away from the IT field, and went on through with a master's degree, and I started preaching. My mentor, Dr. Chris Altrock, took me under his wing, taught me a lot about preaching. I'm sure my first few sermons were just disasters. One of those, it's one of those things that makes you laugh and cry when you're older, listening to some of your initial sermons. But I started working on the craft, and the desire just started burning and burning brighter and brighter. And finally, I said, okay, it's enough. I'm going to start applying for ministry positions. And our first position was in Texas. We moved to Texas, just packed up the whole family, sold the house, gone, everything, and said, this is where we're going. And so we walked with those guys for a little while, and we felt the need for the change, and we started, looking at other positions. And through, I call it that time of wilderness, that transition time, we finally landed in Endwell, New York.
Okay, so that congregation, Tennessee, was certainly a blessing for you to kind of discern your call and to begin to really understand, where is God leading me. Then you take the jump of faith to
Right.
Texas and such things, and then you end up in Endwell. How does that process happen within your denomination, within the Church of Christ, where you're serving a church in Texas, and then a phone call comes, a letter comes, what comes?
Well, really nothing. I mean, it's up to the ministers to apply to different congregations. The Churches of Christ are very independent. There's not a central governing body. You know, they don't have a presbyter like in the Presbyterian church that says, okay, this guy's going here or this guy's going there. It's all up to the local church to decide who they want their minister to be. And you know, we knew things were coming to an end in Texas, and so I started applying for jobs. And after that was over, we moved to Middle Tennessee, to where the area that I was in, there were a lot of congregations that were very small, and they didn't have ministers. They couldn't afford ministers. So I would go to this one week and one the next week, and kind of do an interim thing to where I would just help some of these little small congregations while we were applying for different positions. And over the course of that time, you know, I called it my wilderness time, because I wasn't attached to a congregation, and so there's a lot of, you know, should I stay in the ministry? Should I not stay in the ministry? You know, because when you apply to a congregation and you think you have a connection, and they go, no. You know, I mean, it's heartbreaking, but you have to keep trying, keep moving on. And we applied and interviewed from LA through New York here, all across the U.S. And during that wilderness time, that I call it, I preached in 18 different states.
Wow.
But, you know, and the whole time I was saying, God, why don't you use me? Why aren't you, you know, using my gifts? You know, you led me to step out in faith, and I'm not being used. But I baptized 2 people during that interim time. I had 18 different people that recommitted their life to Christ because of my sermons, and I'd never seen them before in my life. These are places that I would go and just preach 1, maybe 2 sermons and interview, and they're responding to invitations after the sermons and stuff. And so God was still using me, even though I couldn't see it. You know, that was the hard part. You know, so my wife and I said, when we're looking for a congregation, we have to have 2 things. Number 1, we have to connect with the people.
Yes.
We have to be able to minister to the people. We have to feel that we could embrace the people and they would embrace us. And that was the second one, that they would embrace my family. I mean, to really, you know, grab onto us and not let us go. And so over the course of this time period, when we came to Endwell, we have that connection. The people here were just super wonderful. They grabbed us, you know, and we felt very loved from the very beginning, from the time we were picked up from the airport all the way through.
Awesome.
You know, and you know, living in the South, that's an unusual stereotype, because the stereotype is that the people above the Mason-Dixon line aren't as friendly, you know, but it's just not true.
But you haven't found that.
I have not found that at all. I have found quite the opposite.
Praise God.
Praise God. Yes. I mean, I've, you know, been welcomed and, you know, been loved, and it's just been a wonderful time.
Wonderful. And you've been here since July 1st. So you've got 2.5 months under your belt and such things, and still getting acclimated and unpacked and all of that.
We still have a garage full of stuff, unfortunately.
So as you take a step back after this 2.5 months and such things, and I'm sure you're listening and observing and discerning and all of that kind of all those kinds of things, what do you see right now, which I'm sure will be different if we came back